Hello everybody, and welcome to my beginner's Conquest tutorial. So, what is Conquest and why should you play it? Well, Conquest is a strategy game. It gives Void Knight commendations much like Pest Control, which you can use to buy the highly sought after Void Knight set. The Void Knight set gives you a +3 accuracy bonus, and you can upgrade it to Superior and Elite Void after completion of the Void Stairs back quest. Conquest is an alternative to Pest Control if you don't like all the running around and hitting portals. In addition, you only need 2 players in order to play instead of the minimum required 5 for Pest Control. Even with 5 players at Pest Control, you might find it difficult to complete the game and earn your commendations. So to head over to the Void Knight Outpost, which is where you'll find the Conquest game, head over to Port Sarim and travel slightly to the southeast, and then you're going to find this squire and you're going to select the travel option. This will take you to the Void Knight Outpost. When you're on the Void Knight Outpost, to the south you can play Pest Control, but to the west is where you'll play Conquest. So, to exchange your points, you can go to one of the various Void Knights around the outpost. One of them is Captain Ethar. You can gain experience from these commendations in addition to the equipment and armor. You can also buy Jessica's sword after completion of the Void Stairs back. This is a level 75 melee weapon on the offhand slot. The Void Knight Deflector used to be highly sought after, and you used to need 1250 Conquest ranking in order to buy it. However, this has been outclassed with the introduction of EOC and dual-wielding weapons. There are also some consumables. The only one that's worth anything is going to be the herb pack. From my last 1,000 commendations, I got 3.5 million. So these are the herbs that I got. The armor patch is what you're going to use to upgrade each of these pieces of equipment. So the full Void Knight set is going to give you 3% accuracy bonus and a 3% damage bonus. If you upgrade it to Elite Void, if you upgrade it to Superior Void, it's going to give you a plus 5% damage bonus. Now, this is the only armor in the game that gives you an accuracy bonus against any target at all. So, if you're in a DPS role in bossing and you're having trouble hitting a target, the Void Knight equipment is what's going to boost your DPS. Although it's only a level 42 equipment. However, usually you're able to heal off the damage much faster than you receive the damage. So, if you want to learn how to play, talk to Captain Ethar here, and then select, could you give me a tutorial? Now, you might start zoomed in. If that's the case, then zoom out by scrolling outward with your mouse. And if you're on NXT, the camera might be sideways. So what you want to do is click the mini-map. If you click the mini-map, this will rotate the screen. Now, I would recommend clicking it until it lines up straight like this. And now, the controls are actually going to be inverted. If you don't want to deal with this, you can just use the Java client. But with NXT, and if you're doing what I do, you're going to be on the top side instead of the bottom side. And you'll notice you can move the camera around by putting the mouse to the edges of the screen. So if you put it to the right, it actually moves left, and if you put it to the left, it moves to the right. Same for up and down, but inverted controls are actually pretty easy to get used to. So let's go through this tutorial now. So despite what it said, you cannot actually rotate the camera with the arrow keys. The arrow keys actually move the camera. We've got some glitchiness with the NXT camera going on here. So these are all of the troops that you can have in Conquest. This tutorial is meant to give you an overview of what they can do. So for any troop, you can right-click and select Details to look at his different stats. You can also click on this portrait, and it'll go right to where the unit is, but it's gonna mess up the camera if you had that fixed. So these phases don't actually mean too much. There's selection phase, and then there's movement phase. You can select any unit as long as you haven't already moved a unit. So selection and movement aren't exactly the same thing. And then there's combat phase. That's only when you've run out of movement. But you can attack another unit even if you haven't moved your unit all the way. And then rally phase doesn't really mean too much either. So you have these different commands you can use. Anytime during your turn, you can use them before or after you've moved and attacked. It doesn't really matter. So the top of your screen tells you if it's your turn, and there's also this timer up here. Now, since we're in the tutorial, there is no timer, but games will be in either 30 seconds, 1 minute, a minute 30, all the way up to 3 minutes in time, depending on what you select. So we're going to select this scout like it tells us to. Now you'll see that there are these squares that light up blue. These are all the squares that your scout can move to in one click. So this scout, let's remember, has 6 movement. So you can count out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And those are all the squares that are going to be highlighted blue. So now that you've selected a troop, you can left click on any of these squares to move the scout. So let's say we move this scout 2 spaces. Now it's going to recalculate where he can move. He moved 2 spaces, so that leaves him 4 more movement. So you saw these 2 squares were white initially, but now if we want, we could move the scout back over to these squares. So if you can't quite reach an area in one click, you might have to move and maneuver around maybe some obstacles. But for this tutorial, we have to move the scout 6 spaces in total. So we can't move the scout anymore, and we can't actually take back moves. So just be careful of that. Think before you act. So none of these enemy units are in the scout's attack range. He can only attack one space away. So that's going to be anything that's right next to him. So when you're thinking about the enemy units, in order to know how far away they can attack, you have to add their movement and their range. So the scout can attack 7 squares away. So the scout started right here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. He's going to attack most anything that's over in this general area. And this is a very important concept in Conquest. If you attack an enemy unit and the enemy does not die, the enemy actually hits you back. And they'll only hit you back if you're in range. So let's say my halberd hits the enemy champion from right here, because the halberd has extra range. The champion only has 1 range, so the champion won't be able to counterattack. So because there's nothing else we can do, we have to hit end turn. I would recommend never clicking end phase because it doesn't actually benefit you anything. You can switch phases by, say if it's the movement phase and you choose to attack, that'll end the combat phase. So clicking end phase, I would recommend never clicking. Okay, was it me or did that scout just move 7 spaces? I'll have to watch that over again. So we're going to use this archer here to attack enemy scouts. So the archer has a range of 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the scout is 3 spaces farther than that. So we need to move the archer 3 spaces up to kill the scout. So the archer has 100 damage and the scout has 100 health. So the scout's going to die in 1 click. Now you might notice there's this green 1 over that unit. And the 1 actually is not indicative of how much health they have. For example, this knight actually has 300 health, and despite what you think, it is not a 3 in his health bar here. So we've already moved in attack. There's nothing else we can do. Well, there is something we can do, but not for this tutorial. So it looks like the opponent used a command. That's what you saw with those rings going around the knight. So the opponent used charge on the knight. Normally the knight can only move 4 spaces, so 1, 2, 3, 4, so around here, but charge actually doubles his movement. So he chose to move 6 spaces as opposed to, say, 8. So commands you're going to find in this little book tab. So the knight has 300 health, and our archer doesn't have enough damage, and our scout doesn't have enough damage to successfully kill the knight. So what we can do is use one of our commands. We have this command called Battle Cry that gives you plus 200 damage and 200 health until the start of your next turn. So these commands also cost command points. you can find your command points down here. Every time you defeat a unit, you're going to get some command points, depending on how much they cost. Now you can right-click details and look at their cost. That's how many command points the enemy is going to give you if you defeat them. You also gain 25 command points for every start of your turn. And in the beginning of the game, player 1 doesn't start with any command points, but he gets to move first, and player 2 moves second, but he starts with 25 extra command points. So that's going to be something that you have to be careful of in the game. So we're going to use Battle Cry to boost this archer's damage up to 300. And now we're going to select the archer, and then we can attack the knight. So that's something you have to be careful of in these games, is even the units with more HP like the knight can be killed in one hit if they use some sort of command like Battle Cry. So the tutorial ends downstairs from this little hut, and downstairs is where you're going to play other players. It looks like someone is here, left over from the spotlight, I would guess. But you have these two boards over here to customize your different units and your formation. Now, okay, I already have something here, so I'm going to switch it over to what you would start with. So you start off with your units in this kind of formation. I might have it shifted over a square, but the board is 20 long and 20 high, and you have the first 3 rows to put your units wherever you want. Now, I would recommend changing from this default set. So, the default set is not very good. In order to change your units, you're going to select one of these boxes, and you're going to see there are these different options. So you can have all of the different units you saw there, or you can have no troop. You can have up to 10 troops. You'll notice up here it says squad resources 0. Now, in order to get some squad resources back to upgrade your units, you have to select no troop. So a scout costs 25, and you'll see when I select no troop, it gives 25 resources back. You have 1,000 in total. Now the set I'm going to use is going to look like this. So I'm going to choose to omit the knights, mages, and archers in my set. And I'm also going to have an extra command over here. I like to have my chastise on the last spot. But the first thing you need to do is get familiar with all the details of each unit, so you don't have to right-click and details on every time you want to make a move. And you also need to get familiar with all of these commands. You need to read through them. So I'm going to enter a game with this guy so you can see how it goes. Now, to enter a game, you can go through this auto-matching barrier that'll put you in a game with a 1-minute time control. Or you can go through the challenge barrier. You can actually stake people in the challenge barrier. and you can um, you can select the different time control. I'm going to go through this auto matching barrier. So there are different rankings in Conquest that shows you how good someone is. You start at 1,000 like this person, and I am 5,900 approximately. So to start a game, you have to go through one of these barriers at least. And when there are 2 players inside the barrier, then you'll begin the game. Now, I forgot to set up my formation here, but that's all right. One thing I forgot to mention is this button up here at the boards. This will let you set all of these to no troop. Similarly, all of these to no command, just to get all your resources back if you want to do that real quickly. And also at the formation blackboard, when you hit reset, your units are going to be over here at the side, and you drag and drop them in. You might notice you have something like champions missing at some point or another, and that's probably because they're over here on the side.